Okay, hello everyone. So this would be a supplementary video for chapter 2. So what we'll be doing now is to try on some examples of programs using various degrees of difficulty when it comes to implementing computations. Okay, so remember what I've told you in programming. It's very important that you get to know how to not only understand the equation or the problem that you're dealing with. Okay, of course you'll come up with a solution. Okay, so not only that you'll be capable of understanding the problem, you'd also be capable of trying to convert that into a working Python program. Okay, so first is, let's say, a very easy example. We want to compute a certain age, okay, or your age, okay, by a user input. Okay, so it is expected from now on, okay, when we are creating programs, okay, nag user input. Okay, since it doesn't a program isn't that practical if dili siya ingon dynamic ang iyang content in a way nga you could not provide user input. Okay, so we have already discussed, okay, di ba, in our chapter 2 we have already discussed user input. Okay, sa pa order of evaluation, okay, and sa pa certain casting or type conversion. Okay, so hopefully you'll be able to understand that, or you are able to digest and understand the discussion. Okay, so going back to our example, so if you want to compute kuan lang average na, to make it simple, to make it straightforward, we want a program that would ask a user, okay, his birth year. Okay, kana lang, year lang. We are only going to estimate his or her age based on the user inputted year. Okay, so with that, we could say we are going to ask, okay, an information about his, let's say, birth year. Okay, birth year. Na. So next is, okay, since this is a user input, we want to add the line input, then sa paman a prompt. Okay, di ba unsay part aning input ng function? Okay, this is actually a built-in function in which you will be able to receive user input in the command line. Okay, once the user press enter, the program would accept that as the user input. Okay, so we could simply ask enter year of birth na lang. Okay, kana. So now you have your user input. Next is to get the age, estimated age. Okay, diba? What we could do is age would be the variable. Okay, remember these are variables, these are containers of data in which it would ultimately hold the value. In this case, in this first line here, it will hold the value of whatever the user is entering. Okay, then here this is used to store the value on whatever is happening here in the right side. Okay, and in this case I want to perform a basic computation, okay, to estimate the age of a person given the year. We would simply sa may year karon, okay, so 2021 minus birth year. Okay, I am using Visual Studio Code. Okay, and as any good IDE, Visual Studio Code is kind enough to suggest, okay, if you start typing, if you've noticed, okay, once you start writing birth, okay, Visual Studio Code noticed that naana na gi-declare or naana na nga variable nga gamit in the previous line. So Visual Studio Code is kind enough to do that. Most of the other IDEs would also do this. Okay, so kana, so birth years kana, essentially that's it. So let's try. So we have, di ba, what are the three basic processes when it comes to a good program? Okay, one is an effective means of accepting data. So what in this case we are accepting data using the input function. Then we want to somehow transform that data, and in this case we want to deduct, okay, deduct the birth year from the year today. Okay, so as of the time of making this video, it is 2021. Whatever the result of that, it will be stored in this variable here. And di ba? Unsa ganito? Input, process, then output. One ng three basic processes of a program. Okay, in every computing instances. Okay, so we want to display this. Okay, so we want to check if whatever the result of this computation is sakto or what would we expect. Okay, so unsa itong statement? Print. Okay, then you are let's say approximately, or you're around, ano lang, to make it more non-technical. Is that the spelling of around? I think that's kana. You're around, then so ito, we want to concatenate age, di ba? We want to display whatever the value of this variable. So age plus, okay, I hope you di na mo malibog aning concatenation. So space years old. So let's try if this will work. Okay? Ito na. So you get to see na ay prompt dere. So enter year of birth. Let's say 1995. So naatay, there's an error here. I'll be transferring na lang. So to avoid clutter in the output, I'll be transferring this code to online Python. So online Python. Para lang inyo makita is less clutter. So kaniya. Again, when you're using online Python, it automatically adds code in your interface. So that's just a sample. So we need to erase that. Okay, so pasting our code in our from our Visual Studio Code. So we could close this. Kana. So if we make this run, kanina nag-error. So once we, oops, I think I have pressed that too fast. Sana. Okay. So let's say 1995. So you get to see na ay error. Okay. So unsupported operand type for int and string. So that is on line 3. So nahitabo diri is, okay, di ba? If you want to perform calculation, okay, in this case, this should be both of numeric data. So since this is integer, this should be at least an integer. Okay? But remember, this input function will return, okay, whatever the data that is being received here will have a data type of string. So essentially what happens here is you are attempting to subtract, okay, the birth year, which is a string data, from 2021, which is treated here as a numeric data. So unsa to himoon, we are going to cast this information. So there are at least two ways of doing this. So what I would do is I'll be doing the casting here, since in every, let's say, we want to assume that in this program birth year is really numeric. So what we're going to write is, we write the word int, then enclose this entire, okay, the previous function here that we have written, enclose that in parentheses. It's very important nga you get to visualize, okay, mamata-mata ninyo ang pairing. Okay, in programming in Python, okay, it's very important that there are pairs of things here. Okay, common nga pair is kaning code. Okay, so natay pairing ana, ang pair niya is kani. Naputay pairing sa parenthesis. So let's say kani, ang pair niya is yung ani. Now if you've noticed, okay, similar with Visual Studio Code, online Python as an IDE, okay, na siya ihatag nga hints telling you that asa ang pares ana. So in this case, di ba, once I hover my mouse here, makita ninyo nga naay pud siya iyapong gi-highlight yang pares nga parenthesis. So that is also true here. So that serves as a guide kung asa ang pares ana, especially in this case nga nag-nest, okay, or murag nisulod na within another set of parentheses ang usa ka line of code sa ato ang program. So kani. So let's try solving this. Okay? So let us make this run. Okay? So 1995. Okay, na po yung error. So now it's in line 5. Okay? It's very important that you read. Okay? You try to read the error, then if there's a line there, you pinpoint that. Naman na yung mga line numbers diha. So natay line 5. So in line 5 daw, you can only concatenate string to another string. So dere, na error ta dere. So what seems to be the problem here? Okay? Now what happened here is, di ba, remember when I talked about string concatenation? Okay? You could only concatenate, okay, set of strings if all of the components of the, let's say in this case, the operands in our operation here, string concatenation, is of type string. Okay? Unsam day type ani? Okay? Ang type ani is actually int. Okay? So it actually told you here, can only concatenate string, not int. Now again, how do you troubleshoot? How do you determine if that variable is of type int? Okay, what we can do is, so ito ang style ginahimo sa una. We want to write print, then type. Okay, so another set of parentheses. Okay, I think online Python will automatically add a pair of parentheses once you start writing the first or the open parentheses. Okay, so diretso na. Okay, so we have type, ana, then age. Doing this, we'll get to see what would be the type of age of this variable here. Okay, and this variable age. Now, if I'm going to make this run, okay, 1995. Okay, nagya po tayo makita ng error. Okay, since of course this is still being performed, but what we want to inspect here is kaning pag-print ani. So that is actually being done here. Now when we are troubleshooting, most of the time we do not want to make the erroneous statement execute. Okay, so how can we do that in a way nga dili na to ni i-type usab? Okay, if ato ning panason, okay, let's say I'm going to delete that, then you somehow identify that ang type day ani is kana, then you need to change that accordingly. Inyuhan na po ng usabon tanan if inyong i-delete. Now, one way of doing so is to temporarily disable a line of code in your program. So, you can actually do that by utilizing comments. Okay, and so itong comments in Python enables you to, di ba, there are 3 application. One of the application is to document your work. The other is to temporarily, okay, disable a line of code. So kana. So if you want to do that, okay, you can simply write sa pinakauna nga line, any character, any set of characters following a comment would be rendered, it would not be compiled or it would not be interpreted by Python in its compilation, in its interpretation process. Okay, so number sign, kana. So no longer are you going to see this print out, since what happens here is iyahan ang gi-comment. Okay, you temporarily disabled this line of code. So if ato na ipadagan, okay, you'll expect nga kanire pakita. Kaya ito na lang ipakita for the sake nga sakto. Okay, ato ang gihimo. So again, 1995. So as you get to see, nana. Okay, it's int. Then remember, if you want to concatenate strings, these operands should be of string data type, and we have determined the type nga int man day ni siya. So unsa tong himuon? Okay, what we can do is we could cast. Okay, again we cast our cast our variable here. Kay mao may offending ani nga part sa tong code. You could actually delete that, since nag-troubleshoot naman tayo, we do not want that as part of our code. So kana katong type na gi-type kanina. Okay, so what we can do is, okay, if you want to convert a number, okay, into a string data type, you could simply write str, then kana. Okay, so again, dapat nakapares na. So all of this is of string data type, this is of string data type, this is of string data type. So we could expect this to run as expected na. Okay, So 1995. So you're around 26 years old. Okay? So as you get to see, this is a very basic, yet you get to encounter commonly encountered, okay, nga mga problems when you are first dealing with programs. So it's good to have a way of mindset nga pag na error, tanaw ta dire naman tay error nga pakita, then you trace that kung asa nga line, then you solve. Okay, you identify, you find means on how to determine how to solve that. So katong gihimo kanina na daw error when it comes to the data type. So remember, you might be wondering, sir, nga dali ra kaayo nga to ra, okay, nga to ra kadali. Okay, it may one is this is a very basic nga program. Another is you could only achieve this efficiently if you practice coding. Okay, meaning dili ra ninyo nga, let's say nani nga video ninyo ra tanaw-tanawon, di ninyo isulayan. At least you try this out. Then much better thing to do is you do, let's say, a modification, okay, of this program. Okay, so let's say you want to add another component of this program, so that's much better para, okay, ma-practice. So sa sige ninyong kinode, sa sige ninyo nagka-encounter nga problem and you already know the solution, okay, it comes to a point nga murag kuana na siya, murag muscle memory na ninyo nga even though maka-encounter mo og problem nga ani nga balik-balik, okay, kabalo na mo unsay himuon. Okay, kana kay di man pod sa tanang panahon, even though sige na mo code, kay di pod sa tanang panahon nga makuha ninyo na diretso. Kay sometimes na ay mga instances nga ani nga nakalimot lang ka og cast, nakalimot lang ka og convert. Okay, so nga na. So that this is one. So this is like a calculator of your age given a certain year. Okay, so next example, okay, a more practical one. Let's say we want to solve various formulas for, let's say, area and perimeter for certain geometric na mga shapes. Okay, so let's have first, let's solve for the area of a circle. So let's say area and sa may common area and I think that's circumference man ang perimeter sa circle of circle. Okay, so again, this is a comment indicated by this number sign. Some call that as a hashtag, okay, or a pound sign. So this is I call this as a number sign kay mga naandan. Okay, regardless kana siya nga character. Okay, so unsa may kinahanglan if you want to compute the area of a circle, di ba? We need to have, I think, usara ang gavari, okay, the radius. Okay, and another data that we need to have is the value of pi. Okay, so let's say we assign the value of pi. So may value sa pi nga itong gusto. So 3.14. Okay, let's search for that. Value of pi. So 3.14. So let's copy this out. Kana. So na. Another thing is we want to get the user input for the radius. Okay, so you could have radius is equal to input. Okay, you want to ask. Okay, remember when you are asking information from a user, that should there should be a prompt in which it would, okay, it would entice. Okay, it would notify the user nga at this point of the program that it is running, okay, it is asking for additional data from the user. So let's say enter a value for radius. Kana. Pwede bisa kun sa enter radius value, enter radius, and as long as the user knows unsay mahitabo or the user is okay, the user knows what is happening currently in your program. Okay? So since we have the value of our radius and we have the value of our pi, next is, okay, Let's do this katungkuan na previously we have encountered an error since this is a string, di ba? So previously we have encountered an error nga since this is a mathematical computation, dapat numeric ni. Should we use int here? Okay. We can, but we should not. Okay? Nga naman, since a value of a radius in any measurement in the real world, dili gyud na ingon nga integer value tanan or whole number tanan. May tabo gyud na nga nay bungkig or nay decimal point. So, instead of using int, we need to use sa to float. Again, what we are doing here is we are converting the input here since this is a type of string. So, diri pa lang daan, the value of our radius will be converted ultimately to a float value. Okay? Kana. So now we have our pi, we have our radius, so we need to, let's say, compute the area. Okay? So area is equal to, samantong area gani? So na, pi r squared. Diba? Mao na siyang area. But of course, that is not the actual code that we're going to write. Okay? So what we're going to do is going to write pi. Okay, ako na lang ng i-reason ha para dili mo malibog. Tama ba? Area of circle. Okay, pi r squared. So pi times radius then squared. How do we square? So we simply use 2 say tagan 2 asterisk for raising a power or raising a number to a power. So unsa may power na to ani? 2. Okay? So we have done the input. Okay, we have done the processing. Then we're going to perform the output. Okay? So atong output would be of course we want to display the value of this. Okay? So we get to print the area of the circle having radius ano lang, radius sa matibutang dere, of course that is the radius is area. Again, since we are concatenating strings here, okay, we should convert this into string. Currently, these are of type float. Okay? So, di na natin na ikuan. I-print ang type. Okay? This is automatically converted to float since remember, in any mathematical operation, if there is a float, okay, in your equation, the rest of the data type, okay, would be converted to float. Okay? So, kani mahimo ni siya float, then mahimo na siya float. Okay, I have discussed that in our previous discussion or lecture. So, kana. So, let's have this run. Hopefully, walay error. But if na, so let's solve that. So, enter a value of a radius. Let's say 45.75. Okay, na error. Okay. So I have told you that this should be converted, but I didn't do that in our code. So of course, we need to convert this into string. Diba? It's very easy to forget this part of your code. Okay, diba murag na-convert ta dire. Then ato na pong convert dire. Okay, mao gyud nato imoon. Okay, in order for this statement to work. Okay, and if you do not have any idea on solving this, then dire pa lang magsakit na inyong ulo. Okay, that's why it's very important. Okay, I could not stress this enough or emphasize this enough to practice your coding skills. Okay, so ingani pa lang daan niya namoy ginaawat. Okay, mas maayo nga inyo ng sulayan inyong practice so that when it comes to a point that you are going to create a program from scratch, okay, then dili na mo mataranta. Okay, so kani, let's try this. So run. So itong ibutang, let's say 45.75. So the area of a circle having radius 45.75 is kana. So let's check. Okay? It's always a good idea to check. We should not be contented nga na if walay error, di ba? Katong kanina nga naay error, kabalo gyud ta nga sayo patong ginahimo. But what if kay ing ani nga case nga walay error, so we would be assuming nga the error that I'm referring to is itong nga to, itong na syntax error. Here, we assume that this is correct. Hopefully this is correct. So it should be also important nga you find a way of checking your work. So fortunately in our use case karon, pwede ra ta ma-check online. To enter a value of radius, so 45.75. So as you get to see, sakto ra, more or less sakto. Okay, there are rounding issues dire. So parehas ra ana. The reason that this is different is the value of pi here in this case might not be the same. Okay, in a way nga ang number of places. So naay discrepancies gamay but more or less parehas sa sila. Okay? 657.50 something, 55, then kani 6.750. So kana mamaora. Okay? Now actually this is not the optimal way of doing this. I think there is a built-in function in Python in which you get to use the commonly used value of pi. Okay, but sa karon lang, to make our program simple, so let's just utilize this variable here. Okay? So, kana. So, this is 1. So, we have solved the area. Next is the circumference. Okay? Unsa may formula sa circumference. Okay? So, circumference, let's say, ana lang. So, on says, so circumference, I could check this here. 2 pi r. So, it's very easy. 2 multiplied by the value of pi times radius. Kana lang. So, you could actually just copy this. So change some words here. The circumference of the circle having radius is, okay, of course we are going to write here CIRC. Okay, hopefully wala tayo na violate ani nga reserve word, but I think wala. So let's make this run. Center value of radius, so 45.75. So the area of the circle having radius 45.75 is kana, then a circumference is that value. So if you're going to enter the same value, you should get more or less the same. Okay, so 287.45. So maura. Okay, again, a very simple, okay, a very basic application with using mathematical operation. Okay, so rectangle and square parehas naman na. So let's say siguro let's just let us do ang atoan na lang rectangle. Okay, so area and circumference of rectangle. Sige, di na to panason tanan. Let's just omit circumference of, no, not circumference. Okay, area and perimeter. So I hope by now kabalo mo unsa lang area, unsa lang perimeter of a geometric nga object. So instead of asking here radius, what are the necessary data, by the way, unsay kinahanglan nato nga data if you want to compute the area and perimeter of a rectangle. Okay, so let's try searching that. So area of rectangle, so kinahanglan daw ang width and ang length. Okay, so in this case both are, okay, both are user inputted data. Okay, we want that to be user inputted data. We do in the previous example we do not ask for the value of pi. nga naman, since there might be an error when the user would provide their value of pi, kaya basig mali. Instead of 3.14, 15 and so on, nilang mabutang is 3.16, 14. Mabali nila, so of course, the result to a different answer. Okay? But in this case, these two values, okay, could be user input. Okay? Or we want that to be user inputted value. So, first is the width. Okay? So, input. Mas maayo gyud nga aya sa mo pagkuan. You're going to write the actual statement. Let's say kabantay na mo nga naay murag masulod ani nga, let's say ang input masulod sa float. Unahan sa ninyo tong mga statement nga nasulod sa parenthesis para dili mo maglibog. Okay? So, input, enter, width, value. Ana lang, make it short. So, again, with any length or any value of length in the real world, okay, it could be whole number, it could be with decimal value. Okay, so width and length. So, input, enter, length. Sakto ba ang spelling? Length, value. So, float. So, next is we get to solve the area. Okay, so may area. So, ang area sa tuong rectangle is very basic, width times length. Okay? So, we should not write nga ni, di ba? Width, length. Kita lang mo atong nga sakto ba akong spelling sa length? Length, sa olahi gid ang kuan. Okay? Dili lang nga na. Okay? You need to know that this is being read as this is multiplied, the value of width is multiplied by the value of length. Okay? So, dapat we need to use the operator here. Kana. So, very basic. Then, ang atuang perimeter is equal to, so to, perimeter. Kana. 2 times sa kanin naatay makita nga parenthesis as part of its equation, meaning there is an order of evaluation here. Okay, so 2 times, again, I hope you get the gist of this, length katong gigamit. Anyway, this cumulative property pwede ra na mabaylo-baylo ang length ug ang width, but ato lang kuan i-follow kung sa itong nakita dire, length times width. Is that times? Plus. That's plus. Doesn't make sense nga iyapang gi parenthesis. But what happens here is, okay, knowing that there is sa to PEMDAS, okay, or a certain order of evaluation in computing or in evaluating expressions, okay, kani this should be performed first. After this is being performed first, kani dayon. Okay, so dili kani dayon kana. Okay, since natay parenthesis diha, so this is being performed first. Ang length plus width. Okay, so now we have done the input, we have done the process, then we are going to display the results. Okay, so print, pwede na nga ni area is area. Then since we are concatenating strings, then we need to convert that. Print perimeter. So perimeter. Oops. Remember, this is case sensitive, so capital letter P and small letter p in this case is different. str. Now you need only to do this if you are concatenating with a string, okay, or you perform string concatenation. So kana let's print this in a different manner, okay, or different means. So let's say area, okay? And let's say we are going to have print area. Let's see inside tsura ani perimeter kana. Okay, so okay ra ni ingani since you are just printing the value itself. Okay, so you need not cast this into a string. Okay, I hope. Okay, I think there's no need for you to cast this, but let us try and have this run. So enter width value, let's say 4.5, then ato ang length is 6.7. So area is kana, then perimeter as you get to see. Okay, okay ra, nag-display ra ang mga value, and hopefully that is correct. So nanaptay perimeter dari yan sa itong ibutang 4.5 and 6.7. So ato ang length is 6.7, ato ang width is 4.5. So that is sakto ba? Sakto, okay? The perimeter is 22.4. Sakto. Whereas atong area, if we're going to change that here, so ato ang length is 6.7, then width is 4.5. So 30 points, so sakto, mamaora. Okay, you can do this. Okay, depende kung unsay format nga inyong gina-follow. Let's say you are given instruction to follow that output. So tumanon gyud ninyo. Okay? So kani nga niyo, when you are required to perform or to create a program, then you are provided with an output of the program. Okay? As much as possible, you need to arrive with a program with a similar or with the same layout. Okay? Kay when it comes to, let's say, manarbaho na mo, okay, if naipahimo sa inyo ha, most of the time, kabalo na ang client, okay, ang client kung unsa ilang gusto ma-achieve nga output, ang ilang gusto is, you need to find a way to create a program that would ultimately end up with this output. So, diri pa lang daan, make it a habit, make it a practice nga kung unsay output nga gipakita sa inyo nga kopyahon, okay, you need to be able to achieve that. Now what I am referring to here is dili gyud kanang, let's say ako ang output diri is 4.5 ug 6.7. Ang inyong gihimo is inyong gi-hard code na hinuon nga 4.5 ug 6.7 ang length ug value, dili. Ang pasabot ani is ang layout sa output. So let's say ang gi-require sa inyo is ang kani nga value, okay, kani nga value is diri gyud mabutang pag human aning word nga area, and kaning 22.4 would be mabutang gyud diri sa atong perimeter. Print statement would print a line of code in its usage. Okay, when you're going to type that, iyan na i-print yun ang line. Okay, and what it's going to print is unsay sulod dere. If you're going to use another print statement here, it would be printed in a separate line or the line below the previously printed line. Okay, so if you want to change that, okay, which we have been doing that, so area, so ito na yung E, kaya na ibutang daan. Okay, so if you're going to make this run, so itong ibutang 4.5, lahi na lang, lahi nga values, let's say 15.25, then length is 20.16. Okay, so as you get to see, okay, essentially parehas nga value iyang ipakita, meaning ang computation sa area ug ang length, but in this case, okay, natapad na. Okay, you notice nga dikit pa gani. Okay, if na gani mga instances nga nakita ninyo nga naapay linya nga blanco dere, okay, what you could simply do is just write. One way of doing is ingani. Kana. Let's try not having a quotation. If mag-generate mo siya og blank line. So 15.25, 17.4. Okay, so sige to si nanay blanco. So mano yung pasabot nga as much as possible kopyahon ninyo ang layout. Let's say you are tasked to create a program given let's say na instructions dito, then na sample output. Okay, so you need to find a way to copy, let's say mauning sample output, kopyahan gyud ninyo nga the way the program is asking for a certain value ising ani enter with value nga na. So let's say nga na, okay, as much as possible, ha. Okay, it's a good practice that you follow what is being instructed yun. Okay, even though you might argue nga, sir, mas tiada man ni kung butangan nato nga ang area kato pares ganina ng area of a circle given a certain radius ana. Okay, if you are instructed to do that, then do so. But in this case, it's actually redundant, meaning it's unnecessary nga naman kay part sa program execution niya is ma-retain man gyud mo tong mga values nga imuhang gipamutang as the width and the length. Okay, so it could be clutter, it could be a clutter. Okay, it could be cumbersome nga makita na to nga area of nagbalik-balik ng 15 o 17.4 then the repod. So nga na, this is straightforward, direct to the point, and serves its purpose. Okay, again, do what is being required, and if there's a output that you need to follow, okay, then you need to follow the format. Okay, kana. So sa square din sige nako ikuan, essentially the same approach. You need to identify the formula, you determine the user input, you perform the correct process, then you output the result. Okay, so last example is, let's say you want to compute, okay, let's say your grade for midterm. Okay, so let's say midterm grade. Ano lang. So let's say during the midterms you have 2 quizzes, then 1 assignment, then your term exam. So let's say kana lang ang component sa inyong midterm. Okay? So di na to daghanon, okay, for the sake of simplicity. So sa itong naon na to, so we need to have ito na naibutan dali sa comment. Okay, so 2 quizzes, 1 assignment, and 1 term exam. Okay, so dili na siya ma-execute or ma-interpret og appeal in your program since naatay number sign diha. Okay, so let's say we need we set na lang para mas dali. Again, we set the quizzes would be, the 2 quizzes would be 10 items each. Okay, then assignment is, let's say 10 quizzes na lang is 15, ang assignment is 10 points, then ang term exam is, let's say 50. Okay, para na lang tayo varying degrees of items or points. Okay, so quiz 1. Okay, pwede nga na quiz 1 input. Mas maayo gani nga, so far we have been using program nga murag diretso ra iyang mga irag kalit og information. So let us make this as user friendly as possible. Okay, we would like to print, let's say murag title kibali ba kung unsa na siya nga program. Let's say midterm grade computation. Now I think I have been using double quotes. Okay, in some, let's say if you're researching, or in some cases nga magamit po ko single quotes, okay, parehas na sila as long as you are using both pairs or you're using it as a pair. So kanisha, this is a valid string, okay, literal, so as with the using double quotes. Okay, so let's say I'll be using this. Common yun niya makita ising ani, okay, kaning single quotes. So input, enter quiz 1 score. Okay, so let's say butang siya og score diha, butang lang na to, let's say 15 items, 15 points, worth 15 points ang buot pa sa butana. Pwede pa ito ni design para na i-separator sa tuang UI. Okay? So, na. Then, normally, we have a score of integer. So, ito na lang nang i-assume nga integer. So, there's no way a certain user would be, or a certain score would be non-integer. Let's say nga na. So, quiz 1. Kanibitang ko if kabantay mo ga-integrate kog mga spaces in between codes, it doesn't really affect the output. It doesn't really affect the program and how it's being executed, but maka-affect ni sa readability sa inyong code. Later on when you're going to visit this code, okay, makita ninyo ni naamoy groupings magod. Ideally, you group your code in a way kung unsay ginahimo ana. Para sa tong previous example nga naay lahi nga grouping sa input, okay, naay lahi nga grouping sa process, naay lahi nga grouping sa output para mas dali ninyo ma-identify ang parts sa inyong code. Okay? So Q2 is equal to input enter quiz to score. Let's say this would be worth, belayan na lang na to. Let's say 20 points. Okay, pwede na niwalay space dere. Let's check if naabay. Anyway, in this case, munaog man ang iyahang value when you are writing the input. So, natin quiz 1, quiz 2. So, pwede ito another separation for our assignment. So, let's say homework. To make it consistent, tanatog 1. Homework 1. Oops, we need to cast this again. Since input by default is of string data type, or ang data na is string. So, input enter. To make this consistent na lang para dili libog, let's assign this as homework, or let's write that as homework. Enter homework 1 score. So let's say 10 points. Then term exam, let's say term exam. Again, how you name your variables, it depends on the program that you're doing. Okay, as long as it could be easily interpreted in a layman's manner. So in this case, we could easily associate Q1 nga quiz na siya kay nagbutang pag quiz dere, kinapod siya mo statement diha. Okay, so kana input, let's change this int. So input enter saman midterm exam score. That should be, let's say, out of 80 points. Kana. So how do we process this? So complete na. Ito ang kuan. So let's say ito ang grade evaluation is, let's say 20%. 20% would be your quizzes. Then homework would be this should be, let's say 30. 20% sa homework. Then let's say there should be a total of 100%. So let's say 50% term exam. I'm not saying that this is the exact evaluation sa inyong course, but this is just an example. So how do we, okay, ito ang paggamya na lang ha. I think maklaro pagyapo na sa video. So how do we make a computation for this? Okay, normally we want to total our quiz. Okay, if we want to get the total of the overall quiz, I mean. Okay, so mura kanira may kinahanglan to overall. Ang homework ug term exam representative na sa ilahang grade composition dire. Okay, so we could have Q total, okay, or Q total is Q1, Q2 kana. So ang atuwa da yung computation is pwede na to ni ilahion to retain the grouping. Pwede ganito yung butang dere is ato pag i-comment, okay, user inputs diha. Then dere na po dayon is computation. Okay, di ba? Mas dali na to mabasa to ang code. So Q total, then ato ang grade. Okay, grade would be equal to sa to 30% sa quizzes. Okay, so how do we represent 30%? Okay, so we could actually that could be in a decimal form nga ato man nang i-move ang ato ang decimal point, di ba? Let's say 30% na siya nga na ato ra nang i-move ato ang decimal point to the left. Okay, since this is percent, so 2 places to the left. So kana. So 0.30 times man Q total, di ba? Q total. Then we would like to group that. Okay? Since these are separate nga we are this is addition, okay? Plus kana. So a total of ang inyong grade dayon. So grade, okay, 100%. Nga grade is kana. Okay? So let's have this paano lang ni ibutang dere. Kana. Para naatay, di ba? Tsada po ding naingani kay napo tay basihan. Kay natay basihan sa to ang ginahimo. Okay? So sa to ang 20%, that is I think this should be 0. Okay, kana. 0.20 times homework. So HW1 plus 0.550. Okay, it's actually 0. Pwede na 0.5, pwede na 0.2, pwede na 0.3. Okay, that should be plus times term exam. Napaday sayop ano itong ginahimo, no? Okay, actually napay kulang since this should be in percentage nga computation. Okay, but atawa sa nintiwason, we'll just tweak this term exam. Okay, ang ato aday himuon pa ani is ato asa ning i-convert to its percentage. Okay, so kani be, how do we make this easier to read? Q total ano na lang. Okay, let's say quiz percent, Q percent, quizzes, may tsada, quizzes percent, ano na lang. Let's make Q total. Sa pasunod, homework percent, then term exam, let's say percent. So ato himuon is to get the percentage. Okay, Q total. I'll be explaining this once this is done. Q percent is equal to Q total. Okay, Q total divided by, okay, pila may total sa quizzes nga if ma-perfect siya. Okay, 15 plus 20 is 35. Okay, times kana times 100. Okay, nakuha ba ninyo ang reason ani? Okay, we want, okay, since this is your grade is actually a percentage, okay, percentage, so di gina between 1% to 100% ra gina siya. If you want to represent your quizzes or these deliverables in percentage, okay, you need to get the actual score divided the total of number of items. In this case, ato aning gi-get ang total niya sa quiz 1 o quiz 2, so that is 35. Then you multiply that by 100. So this is now in its percentage form. Okay, percentage form. Na. So you are going to do this across this to the other two. So homework percent. Notice nga nauna na ko gi-declare before using that. So as long as you get to remember things or you get to know nga kana siya is mo na imong himuon later as part of your computation, so that's good. So that would be man homework 1 divided by pila may, that's 10. Okay, times 100. Okay, ato na lang ibutang dire. So percentage form, then unsay last term exam is equal to, oh no, not term exam, term exam percent. Okay, let's make this consistent. Okay, let's say butang nato nag 1 diha para dali ra to ang pag-track. So we minimize the usage of entirely unique variables. Let's say if related ra po na sa usa, what we can do is just add an additional, let's say, descriptive word for that. In this case, di ba? Para sa ani ang H1, we want to get the percentage form, butangan na to underscore percent, then we get to perform the equivalent value for that or the expected value for that. So term exam, that is 80, no, not 80. Term exam divided by pila may total number ana niya, that is 80 points times 100. Okay, so final midterm grade. So tawaning anam-anamon ha. So in this, okay, this is just to na lang ning kopyahon dere. So mura nag-layout ra na siya. So here, these are the user inputs. Okay, pwede ra ito na usahon pod. Computation grade. Okay kana. So pwede ra man sila na. So here we are getting the two values for our quizzes, having 15 and 20 points respectively. Dere user input sa yang homework, so 10 points. Then term exam 80 points ang maximum nilang values. So we need to pre-process our quizzes here. We need to total that. Okay. So we are going to use that, okay, as part of the computation here. Now what we're going to do across all of this information, okay, we need to get the percentage form so that, okay, we're going to transform that later in its dere dayon. Okay, ato kani. Okay, so Q total divided by 35 times 100 mo na yung percentage form. Okay, that is kana. So even though we're using int, you might be wondering, sir, unsay itsura ani nga int man ni, but we are dividing expected nga na ay mga decimal places ani. Kay you need not worry about that since remember sa tong previous nga discussion, okay, di ba? This would be converted. I think I have stated this earlier, but if not, if you're dividing, okay, an integer to another integer, okay, the result would be stored as a float data type. Okay? So we do that for our quiz total sa tong homework 1 and sa tong term exam. We get the percentage form sila. Then, so 100 kuha ni sila. Mura ni sila og let's say if mabutang ka og dere. Let's say if mabutang ka nga yung homework is ang homework niya is equal to 5. So ang percentage form ana is dere would be 50%. Okay, or 50. Okay, 50 na siya. So dili man nga na kay ato ang ibutang ani atong grade, atong midterm grade nga computation should not be left as is. We need still first to identify the actual portion of each percentage. Okay? So kaning 0.30 katong kanina na dayon, katong 0.30 mao na siya ang 30% sa quizzes, 0.20. So that is 20% sa tong homework kana. So this might be confusing to you, okay? But I hope you understand. Okay? So kung pa ini, still this is considered as a basic application, but kanilang is very specific in use case. But anyway, let's try to provide examples nga maklaro ninyo kung giunsa pag-solve. Okay? So, pag-output, tanga na nato next space niya. Output, so print midterm grade str grade. Let's check. Okay, so let's make this run. Diba na tayo murag more user friendly na siya. It's more pleasant, it's pleasing to the eyes na. So kabalo na ta nga kaninga program, this is used for midterm computation, ay murag separator diha. So dere nangayon na siya og value sa tuwang quiz. So let's say nga magbutang ta og let's say perfect nga mga points. So expect na to nga yang grade dapat would be 100%. Kana. So enter quiz 2 20 10 then 80. Okay, na error. Saman, that's line 21 unsupported. Ito? Unsupported types for division. Yan naman, term exam. Sakto. Okay. Since I have done this, actually this is the wrong way of doing so. And in this case, no, it's actually valid. Sakto. 'Di ba? Unsa yang error? 21 na term exam strength invalid operation for division. Okay? Now I forgot to convert. 'Di ba? If you notice here, okay, cast na to int. So kana. So kalimot ko og type cast dira or convert this into an integer. Okay? So let's run this again. So unsa to? 15 20 10 80. So as you get to see, yung midterm is 100. Okay, sakto yung computation. Ito ni stylean para separate na pod siya nga para pareha sa silag sukod. To make this consistent, let's say I'll be using single quote here. Kana. So what if kanang pasar-pasar lang? Let's say sa 15 points, igor siya nakakuha og 8. Quiz 1. Sa quiz 2, kuha siya og 10. Sa homework, kakuha ra siya og 5. So midterm, kuha lang siya og 40. So expected nga ang output ani is more or less passing score. Okay? So as you get to see, 50 point something. Okay? So kana. So hopefully, okay, this is a very, okay, might be confusing to you since you are not well oriented on grade computation, but this is just an example. Okay, this is just an example of how, okay, how helpful it is to know, okay, to know what are the different set of inputs that you need to have in your program, how to correctly process this, then how to display it in a manner nga it's friendly. And also we have integrated comments here to guide us later on. It's say naghimo mo inyo ning gi-save, okay, inyo ning gi-save as a source code sa inyong computer. So if inyo ning i-revisit, okay, dali ra ninyo ma-decipher, dali ra ninyo ma-identify ang part sa inyong code with the help of these comments here. Okay? And if to provide ownership pag yun, pwede ing ani. Okay? Author. Nga ngalan. Okay. Romer, ayan, o pasok. Okay? Para napod mo sense of achievement and sense of ownership aning yung code. Okay, let's say inyo ning gi-upload or inyo ning gi-share sa any platform, makita nila nga, uy, siya man din naghimo ani, tsada kay pagkahimo or user friendly kaya nga na. Okay? But actually this code, this doesn't include any form of trapping or any form of correction, error correction. Kay pwede, it's very possible, okay? It's very possible kay ani. Okay? Let's say magbutang ko og 20 diha, nang lapas siya siyang points. Nagbutang ulit, walay error, di ba? Wa siya nagreklamo. Nagbutang ko og 50. Okay? Nagbutang ko og negative 25. Nagbutang ko diha og 1,000. Okay? So even though it processed this without any form of syntax error na siya output diha, but this is not the expected, okay, result that you want to see or you want your program to do. So this is the most difficult type of error actually. We call this as logic error. Okay? Syntax error, mas dali siya ma-identify nga error kay di magid mo gana inyong program kay naay error syntactically. But in this case, ninggana ang program, nag-execute siya, niabot siya sa end sa iyang program nga walay syntax error, but as you could see, as you could readily acknowledge, nagi sayop ani. In a way nga wala niya gipang pugngan nga manglapas ang inyong points or mo below anang 0. Okay? So that would not be a topic for our discussion now. We'll be dealing with that when we talk about conditional statement. So kaning conditional statement or conditional programming, okay, you are trying to prevent users to, in this case, okay, you are trying to limit the range of values and the type of values nga iyahang i-accept. Okay? So kana. So karon lang atong focus ani nga video is to learn examples, okay? From the simplest to, in this case, mo ning pinaka sa out of the 3 examples that I have, or 4 examples ang ipakita, this might be the most scrutinized, the most complicated. Okay? So diha. So diri pa lang, I hope nakasabot na mo. Akong point lang ani is you get to, okay, you get to, unsa tong gingon, you get to identify the necessary data you need to accept. You need to identify how you should process that data. Then you need to find a way to represent the result in a meaningful manner. Okay? A meaningful and easy to read manner. Okay? And also, as much as possible, you document your code so that in the long run, or in the, this would benefit you in the future mampod. Okay? Kay mas dali mabasa inyong code, dili lang kay kamo mas dali makasabot, but when you are presenting, let's say you are going to defend your code to a certain, let's say nag-defend mo sa inyong project, okay, and you are required to show your code, mas dali ninyo ma-explain ang code if naay documentation. Okay? In addition to documentation, okay, proper usage of variable names nga na. And kani pa mga grouping akong pasabot nga murag na spacing. So if you're going to look at this, okay, in a larger manner, okay, di ba? It's organized. Nga makita nato nga, okay, dere murag more on layout pa ni siya sa to ang title, then dere nga part sa to ang code, nag-accept sa user input, ang computation and how it's being computed is being displayed here. Okay, ang computation sa midterm grade, then sa iyang output is ingana. Okay? So I'll be ending my video here, hopefully, okay, hopefully you get to see applications of or examples nga we have discussed, okay, or we have a previous lecture of sa ato ang chapter 2. Okay, so nagamit na nato dere. I hope nagamit nato tanan nga ako ang i-discuss. So again, if you have questions, feel free to ask, okay, sa atong comment section sa YouTube or comment section ani sa atong classroom. Okay, so I'll be ending this lecture video now. So see you next video.